What's going on, everybody? I am Knight, your resident noob dungeon master, and welcome to my series where I talk about my weekly session of D&D and give you takeaways to help you and to help me be better at being DMs, even though we're noobs. This week was our 6th session of our campaign and is my 8th time total ever playing D&D. So let's jump right into it. What happened this week? Well, they did it again. Damn it, they did it again. We had a plan. The plan was to go to Thunder Tree. So I spent my entire week prepping battle maps. That was something I did differently. I did not use a tabletop RPG system. I did not use Fantasy Grounds. I did not use Roll20. I used resources that were provided to you digitally through D&D Beyond, and I created a map in Photoshop. And it worked really well. Spent a lot of time on it. The group decided that, hey, before we go to Thunder Tree, let's take a pit stop in Neverwinter. And if you watch the video, you can literally see the moment where like the light drains from my eyes, because I realized that after all of the time that I have had this session going now, which is a month and a half, right? 6 sessions, a month and a half straight of trying to build through this campaign and run this module and do research and all these types of things, I neglected to see that there was a major city on the whole world map called Neverwinter. So I didn't have a description ready for it. I had no idea what was in the city. I had no idea how the city functioned, what the politics of the city are, any of that stuff. And if I'm being honest, I still don't. I need to look at that, really, really do. But they're like, no, we need to go to Neverwinter and I want to talk to one of my contacts. And I was just like, oh, hidey ho, let's go. And of course, we set off now on this great adventure to Neverwinter. And it's times like these where it's funny. It wasn't even like into the session, right? Like, to be fair, the last session before this, where we kind of had my whole orc kind of campaign, that was really cool. We had lots of stuff happen that I had really prepared for, and we kind of went generally how I thought things were going to go, at least in terms of encounters and who we were encountering. This is one of those weeks where things go sideways in a hurry, and that's okay. I've learned to go with the flow enough. I've learned to trust my improv skills enough, and I've learned to trust my players enough to just have a good time with it. And I think that if that can be takeaway number 1, is just trust your players and you to have a good time. More and more and more, I keep reminding myself the whole objective of this is to play a game. And while I seem to be taking dungeon mastering very seriously because I want to be good, right? I want to provide a good experience to my players. I want to, I'm putting this out on the internet. I don't want to look like a schmuck, right? I know that I'm new, but still I set high standards for myself. We're 6 weeks in and I've incorporated music. I put in a battle map. I'm working on through improv. I've gotten custom adventures in. I've weaved in backstory for my characters. We're not just running the module. We've got lots of takeaways and we're getting lots of good help, right? We're learning how to do loot better. And all of these different things are working themselves up to us having a great experience. But at the end of the day, we trust each other. My players and I have this kind of bond now, and a lot of them are because they're people I've known for quite a long time. So we have that inherent trust, but we know that we're going to have a good time no matter what we're doing. And that's exactly what we did. We had fantastic amounts of fun this week. From the fun we had around traveling, there was some good banter that went back and forth. Before we even got out the gate, we we potty trained Droop. That was something I didn't expect to happen, but was interesting. We then had this really nice kind of campfire setting where the group was kind of joking with each other and having fun and making laughs, which also then turned into a random encounter because gotta fight something. So first takeaway, trust your players. Second takeaway, have some fun. Third takeaway, I am learning to value the role play so much. Now, I've said this a bunch of times already. Role play is what ultimately helps you to tell the story better. And that doesn't have to be with voices, that doesn't have to be with lots of personality, but it does come with putting your characters in situations and owning your characters and owning those experiences and sharing them together as a group. And the thing that I love about focusing on the RP is that we can literally be doing next to nothing but still having a good time. For instance, spoiler warnings. Spoilers alert, spoilers for those of you that haven't done it, and go watch the episode. We leave the city and we're out on the road. I already told you we had a really fun campfire setting on our way to Neverwinter. One of our characters shot an eldritch blast into the sky while all the guys were having a dick measuring contest. And the ultimate encounter of that was that the red brands that had been removed from the city, that had basically been ousted, were still hanging around the area because where else were they going to go, saw that and came to see who it was potentially and get some revenge. Well, they end up taking one hostage, and ultimately I end up coming up with this, again, all of this is on the fly, none of this was planned. I end up coming up with this story where he had actually been forced into the Red Brand service or was threatened that his parents would be killed, and he was from Neverwinter. So I tied something back into the place that we were going to be going to at least give us something more to do there than just a pit stop. Why I did that, I don't know. It just felt right at the time. Go with the flow, rule of cool, all that stuff. So then we get to Neverwinter and we have this whole scene play out where this guy now takes us to his house and we meet his parents, and then they get threatened by the Black Spider, who is the one that's been orchestrating all of these people and sending them to Phandalin, right? So it's really cool how we have these now power structures that we're seeing show up in Neverwinter, which makes sense because that's where Iarno was corrupted and came from. It makes sense because now you have a reason for all these red brands to be in Phandalin, right? They're being sent there by the spider. And on top of that, you have this interesting roleplay scenario where now the characters have raised stakes. So there's a kid that they have captured who was actually trying to kill them at one point, who now they are kind of protecting because they realize he was in a very awful situation, and again showed compassion and went through it. And I loved how they handled it. And so all of that gets done, and we take the family out of town and send them away safely. And we said, hey, we're going to meet at the Silver Star Inn, just randomly made up place. And I described that there was, food and fire and people, and there was a resident bard that was off singing in the corner. And through bards being bards, well, a lot of stuff happened. There was meats, there was drinking, there were so many things that were amazing. And again, if you haven't seen the episode, go watch the episode. But one of the funny things that ultimately ends up happening is that we have this wonderful exchange where Bamir, our bard, goes, hey, how about I sing for you and you give us free room and board? And the lady's like, all right. And she tells the incumbent, the nightly singer, as you were, the regular star, to, take the night off, and that they had somebody that was going to replace them. Well, I just so happened to have fun with that and decided that character was going to know Bamir from college and was going to have beef with him and was going to boo him, which then turned into a bard off. Dueling piano style, you can't make this stuff up. And the dice ultimately ruled in his favor, and it was fantastic. And it was a great night. And then towards the very end of our play session, we finally made it to Thunder Tree, where I had all this stuff prepared, and we went through and had fun and kind of got to a good stopping point in there. But there's just so much to be said about how when you are constantly in a story mode, when you're thinking on the fly about how do we make this a compelling story for your players. And I mean this as DMs. How do we make compelling stories for our characters? How do we put them in situations that are morally gray, to where my players could have easily just said, no, this kid, he could just be lying and he ran out of luck, so off with his head. But they didn't. And so now we have this other thread to pull, and it just adds more depth to the story. And I was able to tie that into the current campaign to where now there's more depth to the villain, where the villain, he's not just somebody that's after power and has had kind of blackmailed and kind of enticed Yarno to be his lackey. He's now on top of that gone into, basically hiring thugs to, force people into being labor and guards and lackeys. He's just a more evil bad guy. Recapping: trust your players, have fun, really think about your RP, and don't be afraid to take your players and put them into situations that are going to ultimately give them more depth and breadth to their stories that they get to experience and that you get to tell as a dungeon master. Aside from that, I think one of the other takeaways that I had was that you have tools at your disposal, and I guess this is going to be more of a mechanical point. You have tools at your disposal that you can use to accomplish similar things for free. If you're someone that already has Photoshop or has a Photoshop-like tool, the way that I was able to create a battle map, and I took some time, I created player tokens. I already had the maps from D&D Beyond. I know you can download maps offline. You can create maps using various softwares and stuff that are cheap. And if you do that and you create your own tokens, it's so easy to actually create this battle map experience in a fairly functional way within these types of programs. And you really don't need to have that kind of bigger experience if you're already covered. I've been using D&D Beyond mainly because it's the source of D&D. I love the character sheets. They now have dice rolling. They have encounters. And with all of those tools available to my players and wanting my players to stay in that place, I don't want them to have to be in another system or running another tool for them to feel like they have a lot of stuff. And I can maintain control, instill smoothness as a DM by taking these things to my hands. Now, that said, I have not fully tried like a Roll20 or a Fantasy Grounds or any of these other systems that are out there to really say whether or not what I'm doing is better, but what I'm doing is an alternative that is free and that was fairly easy to set up. So use your smarts and come up with tools that are good for you. I do have a question for you guys this week. What tools do you guys use for your DMing? Because again, I'm new. What are your go-to systems that you use? What are your go-to things that you use? Right now, I'm doing a variety of different things, and I think I'm going to make individual videos on how I'm currently doing what I do, just to kind of show you guys from my perspective on creatively how I'm solving some of these problems like group music over the internet and the battle map and all that kind of stuff, if you choose to do so, and go from there. So let me guys know, what do you use, what do you swear by, and why? I want to hear it. That being said, thank you guys so much for hanging out for this vlog. I know it's late this week, and I apologize, and I know that most of you don't care, but it's important to me to get these out on time. It's just been a crazy week, and so for all your support, for getting us past 30 subs, for continuing to have enthusiasm and to comment, I really appreciate it so much. So you guys take care. Make sure you're following Dungeon Nytes on Twitter. Make sure you're following Nighttide, me, on Twitch, to where you can be there live on Saturday nights with us as we play. If you can, go to the YouTube, drop a sub, hit the notification button, and that way you can see more of us and we can see more of you. We'll catch you guys next time, fam. Bye-bye.